During the Second World War, one of the ships doing duty for the Allied forces in the South Pacific was a destroyer named the USS O'Bannon. It was a pretty well-armed warship with 17 anti-aircraft guns, torpedo tubes, depth charges, and massive deck guns. However, in the early hours of the 5th of April 1943, they found themselves in a situation where their weapons were basically useless. You see, they were on their way home to their base after a successful mission when they came upon a Japanese submarine known as RO-34. The enemy submarine was also cruising along the surface with its crew sleeping on the deck when it crossed the O'Bannon's path. So instead of opening fire on it, the captain decided to ram the submarine. However, this turned out to be a mistake, because as they came closer, the thought suddenly occurred to them that this submarine may indeed be laying mines, which meant that if they rammed it, it would take both of them down to the bottom of the sea. Hastily, new orders were given and the O'Bannon turned sharply and drifted towards the RO-34, causing the two vessels to broadside each other. Now they suddenly had a new problem. Their deck guns were mounted too high to be effective against the enemy, lying just next to them in the water. At the same time, the Japanese sailors sleeping on the deck awoke, seeing the massive American destroyer looming large right against them. And so they ran for their own deck gun, which would have been extremely effective against the large destroyer at that distance. The sailors on the USS O'Bannon, looking down, realized their own predicament. And so they also ran to find anything they could to fight the enemy with. And all they could find were large tins of potatoes standing on the deck. And if potatoes is all you've got in a difficult situation, potatoes is what you're going to use. And so the American sailors started throwing potatoes at the enemy. Something that sounds incredibly futile and desperate, and it was. However, it was also dark, and the crew on the submarine just woke from their sleep, and all they saw were objects being rained down on them, making huge clanging noises on the metal submarine. And so, without checking out what it was, and probably thinking it were hand grenades, instead of using the deck gun, they ran for cover below deck, and the submarine dove below the surface as quickly as possible to get away. This gave the O'Bannon opportunity to get some distance between them and the enemy, and eventually they could use their depth charges to destroy the enemy vessel. But the battle was really won by a few desperately chucked potatoes when they didn't have any other options. So friends, if you find yourself in a situation where your skills, no matter how good, are just not effective right now, and you don't know what to do, look around and ask yourself, what do you have at your disposal? You may just find that if potatoes are all you've got, potatoes may be all you need to make all the difference.